I'm going to ask you to do something, particularly if you're a Donald Trump supporter. I want you to listen to this whole monologue because I'm about to make a lot of you really mad, and it's not my point. But what I say is going to make you mad, and then you're going to want to hang up and call the radio station and complain. But you should actually listen to everything I'm about to say to the bitter end, because I need to start with a question. Trump supporters, more than any other group on the right, say Republicans have to fight like the Democrats. Republicans need to be as ruthless as the Democrats. That's what they say. You all know it. He fights. That's why they want Trump. He fights. Those other Republicans, the Romneys, the McCains, they sell out. Donald Trump fights. He is ruthless, and you got to be as ruthless as the Democrats to win. You got to do what the Democrats do to win. Whatever it takes to win. It's all about we need the power. Give us the power. We're going to fight like the Democrats to get the power. If that's the case, when does the GOP do what the Democrats did and toss their own octogenarian candidate who is flailing about in the polls? Now, before you get mad, just listen to the rest of this. Some points to be made. How you answer that question will shape you mentally for the next less than 90 days of this election. Do you say, as some are already starting to say, well, the polls are rigged, you can't believe them. They were fine when Donald Trump was ahead, and now suddenly they're rigged. Democrats hated Nate Silver, and now Silver has improved Harris's odds. Suddenly they like Nate Silver. And the Republicans like Silver, now they hate him. Republicans believe the polling, now they don't. Democrats didn't believe it, now they do. Complete role reversal. Or as some old boomer told me on social media, it's actually the computers. The computer algorithm is going to decide who's the president. We could vote or not vote. It doesn't matter. It's the computers. It's the software. Or it's going to be stolen. You know, it's already, they're amping up. It's going to be stolen. No matter what happens, it's going to be stolen. The excuse making is setting in, and that's part of the problem here. And that's a warning sign for Republicans. The excuse making has begun. You have the mental rhetorical challenges of Donald Trump, and the data out there looks bad. And I can tell you what's going on because there's a New York Times story that confirms my thesis. You know, it's the New York Times. See, if the New York Times says something interesting and positive about where Donald Trump is headed, you can believe it. But if not, it's got to be fake news, apparently. There's this. A week before a Hamptons fundraiser where he had a bunch of millionaires and billionaires present, on July 25th, Mr. Trump stunned one of his wealthiest patrons, Miriam Adelson, the widow of the casino magnate Sheldon Adelson, by having an aide, Natalie Harp, fire off a series of angry text messages to Mrs. Adelson in Mr. Trump's name, according to three people with knowledge of what took place. The texts were particularly jarring because Mrs. Adelson and Mr. Trump had a friendly meeting just a week earlier at the Republican National Convention, according to a person briefed on the matter. The texts complained about the people running Mrs. Adelson's super PAC, Preserve America, into which she is pouring millions of dollars to support Mr. Trump. At the time, Preserve America was spending nearly $18 million a week worth of ads aiding Mr. Trump in 3 battleground states. The texts said that the officials running Preserve America were rhinos, Republicans in name only, and that Mrs. Adelson's late husband would never have tolerated that, the people said. According to two of the people, aides to Mrs. Adelson later discovered the outburst against her had been encouraged by another major Trump donor, Ike Perlmutter, the former chairman of Marvel Entertainment, who had hoped in vain that Mrs. Adelson would contribute to a rival super PAC that he backs. The text messages prompted concerns as yet unrealized that Mrs. Adelson might scale back her support. Now, let's go back to what happened in Georgia on stage. Donald Trump, before he got on stage, had been surrounded by some angry old people in Georgia who don't like Brian Kemp for scuttling Buckhead City, an effort the legislature wouldn't allow to go forward to incorporate a new city in the northern Atlanta financial suburbs. So what did Donald Trump do? He got on stage and attacked Brian Kemp and his wife because an angry old man had gotten to him before he got on stage. And here another angry old man, Mr. Perlmutter, got to Donald Trump and railed against Ms. Adelson. What happened? Donald Trump channeled the anger towards Ms. Adelson. Donald Trump is now live again on Twitter. He just started posting about an hour ago. My guess is this is a campaign-controlled account and not necessarily him. That's a good thing. Donald Trump has been off his game since, understandably, he got shot, a bullet piercing his ear. That level of trauma does something to a person. He's now very angry. That anger is a natural traumatic response. The problem is there are less than 90 days to go, and Donald Trump is well off his game. He attracted attention over the weekend for attacking the Democratic senator of Montana for being fat, the biggest stomach he's ever seen, just a grossly big stomach. He's off his game. Now, Donald Trump lacks the discipline. Last week I spent several days diagnosing, here's what you do. You go to local media, ignore the national media. You do a barnstorming press tour. You sit down with the local media. You let them do that. You build up your ground game. The problem is Trump is Trump. He's not going to change. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. If the Trump supporters who say we have to be as ruthless as the Democrats are right, then the Republicans need to toss Donald Trump from the race, because if you take the polling averages, pick your favorite polling average. You can say you have none, but you all look. His hard level of support has not risen from about 43 to 44%. In fact, what all the polling is doing right now, and this is where we need to head in this discussion while you're still mad at me for my opening question, he hasn't gained support. What's happened is a lot of Democrats who didn't want to vote for Biden are coming home to Kamala Harris. It's notable that Harris's surge coincides with a collapse in support for Robert Kennedy. These Democrats no longer need a protest vote. So she's beginning to consolidate Democrats in a way Biden couldn't, and Trump is not bringing new people outside of his hardcore support to him, and that's a problem. If this continues, the Republicans will lose in November. But, and this is why the answer to the question, should the Republicans throw Donald Trump off the ballot, just like the Democrats did to Biden, the answer to the question is actually no. No. What we're seeing right now is partly a honeymoon effect from Kamala Harris. She's next week got her convention. She will define herself because the Trump campaign in the last 4 weeks have failed to define her. They will allow her to define herself. And her polling will probably go up a little more. But Donald Trump and his team, once everything is locked in, I have a stinking suspicion. One reason they've operated the way they've operated is because outside of the online clamor about Tim Walz, it hasn't really pierced the national zeitgeist, national conversation. They're waiting for the convention to lock in the Harris-Walz ticket before they come out swinging hard with a national media campaign. Once the Democrats lock in their choices next week, then the Republicans will go to work publicly. They don't want the Democrats to pull the rug out from under them again. The problem here, though, for Trump is the clock is ticking on his ability to exercise some message discipline. Behind the scenes, his campaign is telling people he understands the problem. But behind the scenes, they're also telling people he's so angry it's causing him problems. He's angry for lots of reasons. First and foremost, he nearly died. Secondly, his campaign was too successful in throwing Joe Biden overboard. The campaign of Donald Trump really had a big role in developing the national conversation about Joe Biden, which ultimately led to him leaving. His campaign was too successful. What they probably should have done is waited to accept Joe Biden's debates after Joe Biden received the Democratic nomination and locked him in place, where it becomes vastly more difficult to change the ballot. Trump doesn't need to be thrown overboard. In fact, frankly, I think that the Republicans now deserve to sink or swim with the Trump ticket. You put all your eggs in this basket, so now you're either going to own it or not. Now, if you lose, I know what's going to happen. We're going to relitigate stolen elections. The computer stole it. The algorithm picked it. There were nefarious dealings. It was China. It was Russia. Excuses will be made. Outcomes will never be accepted again in American politics. But ultimately, Trump deserves the opportunity to turn this around. And Republicans who dislike Donald Trump, and I'm not a fan, Republicans who dislike Donald Trump should give the man the opportunity. He took a bullet. He deserves the opportunity to turn his campaign around. He deserves the opportunity to reinvigorate his campaign with a message that focuses on Kamala Harris's policies, not her looks, not her background, not her race, not the size of other candidates' stomachs. Donald Trump deserves the opportunity. He weathered the storm. He took a bullet. Let him relaunch his campaign. He's got less than 90 days. That's the problem. That's why people are nervous. He has the opportunity to do it. He should be given the opportunity to do it. Now, in doing so, we have to understand the media is out to get him. The media is fully on board the Harris-Walz campaign. They are doing everything they can to distract from Tim Walz lying repeatedly about his service record. They're doing everything possible to deflect from that. They're doing everything possible not to challenge Kamala Harris. The Trump campaign is trotting J.D. Vance out to do all of these interviews. Republicans say they have to be as ruthless as Democrats. Democrats threw their candidate overboard. There will be some Republicans say, well, we must do the same to Donald Trump. Actually, no. What you should do is you should be very vocal to Donald Trump, who cares greatly for his base, by the way. Trump actually does really care about his hardcore supporters. And so those hardcore supporters owe it to Donald Trump to be loudly candid with Donald Trump that you got to focus on Harris's policies. Stop with the petty grievances. Stop with fights with Republicans. Stop with all the stuff about how she looks or what her race is. Focus on her policies, Donald Trump. Focus on how bad she would be for the economy. It's the economy, stupid. Focus on the economy. Focus on groceries. Focus on gas. Focus, focus, focus. If Donald Trump's not capable of doing it, well, he's the same Donald Trump we've always had, and it'll be Republicans who have to hold themselves and his supporters accountable after Election Day for getting the same results you got in 2020. Again, if you think it's going to be stolen and it was stolen in 2020, why the hell do you nominate the guy who had it stolen from him when he was sitting the president, and now he's not the sitting president? But otherwise, Donald Trump is owed the right to reboot his campaign. He's got to do so immediately. He should not be tossed off the ballot. Republicans who want to stop Kamala Harris should actually rally around Donald Trump. Wish him well, pray for him, and be very, very vocal. Don't hide it, but be loud about it, that your campaign has got to change. Donald Trump cares about his support. He cares about his base. He cares deeply about his base being taken advantage of by grifters on the right. If he cares that much about them, he doesn't want to disappoint them. But his base of support, has to be vocal that this isn't working. Fix your message. Get it done today. You are our nominee, and we've got to stop Harris. If he can do that, maybe he can still win this thing. Because I'm not convinced all the Hispanics saying they're going to vote for Kamala Harris really want her in office. And that's something the Trump campaign is going to have to figure out.